Welcome back. In the wake of the coronavirus outbreak, we've all been subjected to fake news and misinformation. Government has attempted to curb its growth by criminalizing the spread of false information, but some legal experts are calling on government to rethink laws making it illegal for individuals to spread false information. They say the rule is too broad and needs to be narrowed, with enforcement issues being another problem. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Tanveer Jiwa, a legal officer at the International Commission of Jurists. Thank you very much, Tanveer, for joining us here on ENCA. Now, just explain to us exactly how far we are in terms of trying to criminalize, the aspects of people spreading fake news.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today. As we stand right now, Section 11.5 of the Disaster Management Act has already criminalized misinformation on COVID. And this section goes as follows. Any person who publishes any statements through any medium, including social media, with the intention to deceive. Now, those news relate to COVID-19 infection status, and any other measures taken by the government. Criminalization would lead to either imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months, or a fine or imprisonment. Now, there are a lot of issues with this section, but essentially people have already been arrested under this section, and the section is overly broad, namely with the intention to deceive. How does one prove that they did not have the intention to deceive by spreading information? Because a lot of people are not aware that the information that they're spreading are actually misinformation. And I think we need to always keep that in mind, because misinformation is not always done with such an intention, and it's not really clear as it stands whether such a defense could be used and when would it be used, after one has been charged and already arrested, or in court, and how would that work when the harm has already been done to the person.
Now, of course, you're saying that it's too broad, and you're saying that the law enforcement around it is also problematic. So what would be, your assistance to government to make sure that the act is not that broad?
Well, the ICJ has done extensive research on misinformation laws in Asia and the African continent, and we have found that in a lot of instances, those laws are used to possibly maybe tackle political dissent in many instances. Now, sometimes that works because also the police has not really been trained as to how to react when someone has broken such type of laws. So we would ideally recommend not criminalizing misinformation at all. And it is important to know that not criminalizing misinformation doesn't mean that it's not regulated. It can be regulated through administrative fines, like traffic offenses and such kind of offenses, but it's not necessary to criminalize them. Now, if the government still aims on criminalizing misinformation, the aim would be to narrow down the section. For example, in this section, there's a part that talks about publication of statements. Now, what does that mean? Is it when someone is tweeting something, when someone likes and retweets this information just maybe to draw attention, not to show support? Does that count as publication? So as it stands, it's too broad, it's vague. There's absolutely no idea as to what conduct exactly is criminalized. So we would ideally have the government reassess this law, amend it so that it's narrowed to an extent that you can have a conducts listed as to what exactly is criminalized, because obviously with criminal law there is more at stake. People can go to prison, people can be fined, and most importantly, Section 16 of the Constitution guarantees the right to freedom of expression, and it can only be limited under narrow circumstances. So if it can be limited in other means that are less restrictive, for example, like I said, the administrative fines, that would be a constitutional limitation. As it stands, this section is too broad, it's too vague, and it doesn't really give a person an idea of the clarity on the law. What exactly can get you in prison? This much is not evident.
Now, of course, I wanted to speak to you, of course, about the constitutionality around it because of the freedom of expression aspect of the Constitution. But, of course, do you think maybe government is kind of implementing this law to, scare South Africans, scare people away from spreading what they deem as fake news?
This is a very interesting question, because Of course, we could see that the aim of criminalizing misinformation is to stop the spread of misinformation, but we really need to ask ourselves whether that is actually being done. A lot of people are not aware that what I've said before, that what they're sending out is actually misinformation. During coronavirus, it's a novel kind of a novel pandemic. A lot of people are not aware because the government is not actually giving out a lot of information, for example, in relation to vaccine, because of non-disclosure agreements. So because people don't have accurate information, they tend to believe the information that is in front of them. So how we need to actually address that is by educating people, and the government needs to be more transparent in what is going on, because as it stands, a lot of people, if they don't know that they're actually spreading misinformation, then this section does not help in deterring people from sharing this information. And instead, if it's not going to achieve its purpose, then it's likely to be unconstitutional, because it's limiting your freedom of speech for no reason, because it's not achieving the purpose by actually deterring.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Tanveer Jiwa. She is a legal officer at the International Commission of Juries.